All right. Hey guys, welcome back to New Digs on a chilly 30-something day in early December, and I have my Cindy Lou Who holiday hairdo going on. So I hope you'll all enjoy that as we talk about creating a container, holiday container here in Jill's garden.
Yeah, it's time to kind of dress up the front of the house a little bit, and we've got a couple of empty containers flanking the front step. So I've kind of got something in my head, but I think I'm going to be looking to Melissa's expertise on how to achieve that. And you went shopping for greens at the nursery,
Yeah,
and you found a ton of stuff.
I did.
Worthwhile. I went foraging in our woods, and I cut a bunch of stuff down. So I think between that, we should have something worthwhile going on in the front here. So
yeah, and I think that combination of foraging for the main materials and then just buying a few things that
are
you wouldn't
special.
necessarily find from the nursery.
You brought a bunch of things that I certainly do not have in my garden.
Well, and some of them are from the south, so we'll talk about those when we start doing the containers.
Okay.
So let's get going.
So here's an example of what many nurseries carry at this time of the year. These are all bulk greens, different types, and in most places they're sold by the pound. Some places will bunch them up for you. But what's nice about this is that you can choose a variety of things that you think you might want to use in your container, and you don't have to buy the entire bunch. So it's going to be very cost effective. The only issue is that oftentimes these haven't been trimmed very carefully, whereas the bunches will have been, so that you'll have to do some cleaning. But in general, that's easy, and you're going to be doing that anyway in order to create different heights for your container. So here we have white pine. This is noble fir. This is something I like because the texture is very coarse and it holds its shape upright. Here's some others. This has been flocked with something. I believe it is hemlock or maybe Fraser fir that's been flocked. It looks nice in containers. I'm not crazy about the way it looks lying here in a pile, but it does look nice in containers. Fraser fir, and remember that if you cut your own Christmas tree, or if you go to a nursery to purchase your Christmas tree, ask them to save the trimmings off the bottom. You can use those in container as well. More Fraser fir here, white pine. Juniper looks beautiful in containers. Tends to be sort of short, so you generally will use it in small pieces as opposed to being kind of a structural plant in a container, but absolutely beautiful. Blueberries. Down here is some sort of cedar. This gives that beautiful ferny look, and often you'll see this used around the edges of a container, draping down just to soften those edges. So lots and lots of choices here.
Besides buying your greens, the nurseries are a great place to find inspiration. They have so many different pots already made up that are so beautiful that you could just purchase right then. But you can also just look at them and sort of get ideas about how you might want to combine things. They're very creative, so it's always a nice place to start.
Yeah. So we have 2 urns, and they're cast iron, and they're very heavy. So we're going to just work with them in place. But if you're doing something like this at the nursery and you're doing a matching pair, you wouldn't do it like this, right?
Right. So sometimes a customer will come in and they don't bring in the entire big cast iron thing. They'll bring in a little cheapo, a plastic pot. Yeah, exactly. An insert. Now this doesn't lend itself particularly well to that because it's shallow. But if you have a deeper urn or a deeper pot that you used over the summer, empty the soil out of it, bring just a liner that fits. And then if you have it done, say at a nursery, and you want to do 2 that are symmetrical, just put them right next to each other in front of you, and you do them in tandem. so that
Oh, so
they
you
match.
make sure that they're balanced.
Exactly. It's easier than, doing one and then trying to copy it. Although it's, that's certainly not impossible. And in this case, because we can't move these and we're not going to bounce back and forth like jackrabbits.
They're 6 feet apart, so we're just going to have to be stepping back and looking at it and making sure they work. But
and the main thing is just, using the same greens in both so that you have, that will be the symmetry that will pull them together.
Okay.
And by the way, these are perfect. Jill has a Queen Anne Victorian home, and these urns are just going to look really fabulous here.
I want to have these lanterns hanging on a hook, so I had Bill make me a little block that this could stabilize into. And I'm going to start by securing that. It'll be okay, right?
So in this case, because the urns are empty, Jill is putting some soil in. And that's just basically because you need to have some sort of substrate that the greens can stick in so that they stand upright. This is just regular potting soil.
And hopefully once this gets snow and rained on and freezes a little bit, it'll kind of hold everything really well.
All right, so let's kind of talk a game plan here. So we've got the soil in, and you very adeptly remembered that you're going to have those lanterns in. So you put that in because that would have been a bummer to get everything in and then on that little base. So that's perfect. What I've seen the real container people do is they kind of green it first. So they take the kind of structural things that you're going to use the most
And then
of.
do the berries after.
And then do all the smaller little bits and pieces because those are the real finesse part.
Okay.
So, and you also want to think about the scale of the container. So, how tall it's going to be. In this case, you have that lantern hanging there, so you want to probably have that in place when you're starting to do the greens.
Okay.
And you want different layers and different. You want to have something to pull your eye in, and that's why something like this. This variegated boxwood.
That's so pretty.
It's so pretty that I brought from the nursery. Just a few little sprigs of this are really going to perk up a container and pull your eye in.
Okay.
Another thing that I brought as a little specialty item.
That is beautiful.
Yeah, this is Incense Cedar, and this is one of my favorites. It a lot of people use it. It does, and a lot of people you can use it just sort of upright, and it'll kind of tip like this, or you can use it at the edges. A few sprigs.
It's so sweet that the little
Yeah.
berries, and even the stems are pretty.
Yes, it's a beautiful, beautiful green. I love this every year.
Okay.
Yep. So those are just a couple things. I also brought as a little specialty item. This is called Carolina Sapphire, and so from the name we can tell this is not something we're going to be foraging here
Okay.
in the northwest corner. But this too is very ferny and beautiful, and just gives you. It's got a blue tint to it too. So I think it's a few sprigs of this will really look great in your urns. So those are just a few things I brought.
And then this is the bottom branches from our Christmas tree that we just cut a couple days ago.
So you actually went out into the woods and cut your own Christmas tree every
Well,
year,
we went
which I
to
love.
a
Christmas tree farm. I know.
But yes, but we got to cut off the lower branches, so that's all that.
That's always a great thing to do. Perfect.
A little bit of white pine from here on the property, a little bit of hemlock, and a little bit of cedar from our trees back
Oh, that's
here, and a little bit of winterberry. And then I did buy a couple of bunches at Trader Joe's.
Oh, nice.
So
Okay.
even your grocery store might have something.
Yeah, and
pretty.
this is a mixed bunch, right? So it's got several things in it, which is a really nice idea. Instead of buying a whole bunch like this, you purchase the whole bunch. So that's a really perfect solution. Okay. All right, so let's get going. So we want to think about, I think those lanterns.
Put the lantern in.
just so we know how tall it's going to be. I think I'm in your way.
So that lantern's there.
Yep.
Yay.
Now to work around it. Yep, exactly.
Okay, so where would you start? With
So
the big stuff?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think, what do you think your main things are going to be? I think the
We have a lot
Fraser
of
fir.
those.
Yeah. I think that's going to be your baseline. I think the white pine is going to be big, and I also think those mixed green pieces from Trader Joe's would also be really great. Okay. And then we'll worry about all these fluffy things and the berries.
That's going to be more like the cherry on
Exactly.
top.
The winter berry on top.
Yeah. Okay.
So one thing you'll need for this, in addition to the soil, if you don't already have soil in your containers, and by the way, if you have a container that you planted with annuals over the summer, and it still has soil in it, you either have to do this before the soil freezes, or you have to be able to bring the container at least into a garage, or in my case, I brought it into the container I'm going to work on at home
It
later.
was cold this week,
Very
so
cold.
so it would have frozen.
Yeah.
I knew that these containers were empty, so I just picked up an inexpensive
Yeah.
bag of. It didn't really even matter
It doesn't matter what it is, really.
what it is. So.
I mean, you could, if you had a dirt pile somewhere on your property, that would be fine. Because all this is just something to hold the greens in place.
right.
This is not, they're dead, they're cut, so you don't have to worry about the quality of that material. Yeah, yeah. But in my case, I brought the big pot into my mud room inside the house to let it thaw out so that I can use the soil I used over the summer, but it won't be frozen. So.
Okay, so
So you're going to need the soil, as we said, or a pot already filled, and you're going to need some kind of pruners.
okay.
If you're cutting something that's a little thicker, like this, you might need something.
These have ratchet,
Yeah.
so these are very strong.
Yeah. Mine are more like snips, but I've used these on pretty substantial branches. But you just know you're going to need something to cut with.
Okay.
All right.
Start.
Yep.
Now, these have kind of a bend to them. Do we keep that in mind?
Yeah. I mean, basically, you're going to want enough to sort of stick it down in there. But you also, you want to look at how this thing looks. Does it have any, kind of deformed pieces or dead pieces? And if so, you just trim it up a little bit. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just remember that this is going to be filled with all kinds of beautiful things. But just be thinking about the height a little bit. And in this case, let me ask you, so these we're basically going to see from one side, right? So would your thought be to have it taller in the back and lower in the
Yes.
front?
I think so.
I do too. I think that's a great look for this.
And also, these
So you
are
can-
these lanterns kind of have a cheat. They have a battery operated
Oh, that's
candle, so I can flick it on
Perfect.
from there. So I need to be able to reach underneath it. To,
And we kind of, right. So we want things lower here. We also want to kind of hide this crook if we can. I would think a little bit. All right, so let's just start kind of trimming these guys. And you typically want to pull off just some of the lower stuff just so that you have less, the needles, so that there's less friction when you're sticking it in. And the thing about the cedar, it does kind of have a left and a right. So that's something to take into account when you're doing your design, because it will kind of tilt in a certain direction, so it's good to think about that. So I'm going to take a piece from this side, put it here, and it already has that beautiful curve on it. So would you sort of drape it over so on this one? Yeah, exactly. And then we can use, we can put more in, but at least that gives us a sense of how it's gonna be. And you do want to, as much as possible, get it rooted in there. I mean, the more stuff, and as Jill said, once everything freezes, the container freezes and the soil does, everything's going to be held in place, but you do kind of want to poke it in there. It's windy today, so you can see things could easily get uprooted. All right, I think we start with some white pine now to give us some height. Kind of, you see how soft a texture that is? And this just looks ratty. This looks like Charlie Brown Christmas tree on its own. But when it's in a large container like this, it's going to be really special. There we go. It just softens that edge and gives me a little bit of height. You have to start to match what she did. Yep. I'm filling in more with Fraser. So I literally have a lot more sympathy for people who put their holiday decorations up in October. I kind of get it now.
Yeah.
I actually had to go in and I had pain in my fingers from the cold. It was absolutely ridiculous.
It's windy today.
It's cold. But we accomplished this, and I'm very proud of us.
Yeah, I mean, I think originally we were talking about coming over to your house and doing yours next, but I think we're gonna have to save it for another day because it's just too cold.
It is, but I think, you know, the interesting thing and what kept going through my head is a lot of the women I work with who make wreaths and do these containers at the nursery where I work, they're always saying at a certain point you just have to tell yourself to stop, because you could just keep going, and you see how addictive it is. One more little piece, and you know, we may have overfilled these a little bit, but I think they're gorgeous, and I love that we used a combination of foraged things that you found and a few little extra items. I think they're absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, I do too, and I think that that those extra little pieces of greenery that you just can't find around here, it's nice to add that, and you know, usually I add a lot of pine cones and things in that I forage, and I'll find someplace else to put those, because there's not 1 inch of room for a pine cone right now. So
not really, but it was a really fun project despite the cold, and now of course the sun's coming out. It feels pretty temperate right now.
Yeah, not too bad.
But so guys, thank you for joining us on New Digs, and we will see you again next time.
Okay,
Bye.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everybody.